Upset. This word is very prominent in the prior month of March when D1 college basketball teams compete in March Madness. In the sport of college football, we see upsets all the time, usually when a top 25 team loses to another unranked FBS team. But we've even seen multiple FCS teams upsetting FBS teams in the college football season. Now, how about the times an FCS team has upset a ranked FBS team? In the history of college football, it has only happened 6 times. Today, I want to show you the games where these upsets happened and what happened to each winning FCS teams and losing FBS teams seasons after that game. The first FCS win against a ranked opponent came in 1983 when the FCS and FBS were still named A and AA divisions. It was September 10th at Beaver Stadium. The 20th ranked Penn State Nittany Lions took on the Cincinnati Bearcats. Penn State came into the game 0-1 after a humiliating loss to number 1 Nebraska, 44-6. This game was low scoring, however, Cincinnati scored 2 touchdowns in the second quarter and held a 14-0 lead going into halftime. Penn State kicked a field goal in the third to make it 14-3, and that resulted in the final score of the game. Penn State now sat 0-2 with this loss, and even lost the week after against a ranked Iowa. The next 5 games, Penn State won, then they ended up losing to Boston College to become 5-4. Wins against Brown and Notre Dame, then ending the season with a tie against ranked Pittsburgh. With a record of 7-4-1, that was enough to get Penn State into the Aloha Bowl game against Washington, which they won 13-10. After being champions in 1982, not the best season for Penn State. Cincinnati rode that momentum for about a week, then lost to Oklahoma State 27-17 the week after their upset win, and finished with a sad 4-6-1 in their season, scoring only 19 a game. It then took another 24 years to have another upset win, and this game is probably the most iconic out of the 6. Number 5 Michigan was looking to get an easy win against Appalachian State to open up their season, but Appalachian State had other plans, and it became apparent when Michigan was losing at half, 28-17. Fans in Ann Arbor had a sigh of relief, though, when Chad Henne completed a long pass to Mario Manningham with 6 seconds left on the Mountaineers' 20, because at this point in the game, the Wolverines were down 34-32, meaning a short field goal attempt was for the win. The Wolverines lined up for a field goal, and the rest was history, as Appalachian State blocked the game winner and won at the Big House. After this upset loss, Michigan would go on to lose the following week to Oregon to make them 0-2, but followed that up with an 8-game win streak. The last 2 games of the season at Wisconsin and versus Ohio State, Michigan lost both of them and set themselves with a record of 8-4. They got into a bowl game to play the Capital One Bowl against Tim Tebow's Florida Gators and won that game 45-31. Appalachian State, on the other hand, was a team that had just won the 2 previous FCS national championships in 2005 and 2006, so they were just not going to roll over. In their regular season, the Mountaineers went 9-2, making the FCS playoffs. They beat James Madison in the first round 28-27, beat Eastern Washington in the quarterfinals 38-35, beat Richmond in the semifinals 55-35, and ended up in the championship again. This time it was against Delaware, and App State beat them easily 49-21. I think a lot of fans in the sport don't know the story about Appalachian State in the 07 season, besides them beating Michigan. They were the eventual FCS champions, and no one ever talks about that part. Now, just 3 years later, the newest FCS upset took place at Blacksburg, Virginia, where James Madison played 13th-ranked Virginia Tech. This Virginia Tech team was led by senior quarterback Tyrod Taylor and started in the preseason rankings at number 10. A loss to a very good number 3 Boise State saw the Hokies drop to 13th, but an easy bounce-back win was on their minds. Virginia Tech had the lead 16-7 just at the start of the third quarter, but 2 touchdowns in the span of 5 minutes put James Madison up 21-16, and the game stayed that way until the end. The Hokies, however, won 10 straight, made it to the conference championship against Florida State, and won the ACC after that. Then they got to play Jim Harbaugh and Andrew Luck's Stanford in the Orange Bowl, and Stanford got the best of Virginia Tech and won 40-12. In the FCS world, James Madison's season was interesting to say the least. Including Virginia Tech, the Bulldogs would play 8 ranked FBS, FCS schools in their 11 games. Tough schedule. In those 8 games, James Madison went 3-5 and ended the season as 6-5. An interesting fact in that every game of theirs in the 2010 season, besides their opening game against Morehead State and a game against New Hampshire, were all one-possession games. Some unlucky plays, yet some fun uncertainty sprinkled into their season. Another 3 years went by, and another upset occurred to ranked Oregon State. Eastern Washington made the 6-hour trip to Corvallis and made it an action-packed game. This game consisted of some notable names, including Sean Mannion and Brandon Cooks of Oregon State, as well as Vernon Adams and Cooper Kupp of Eastern Washington. At the half, the game was 29-17 in favor of Eastern Washington, but with 5 minutes left in the fourth, Taryn Ward ran in a touchdown for the Beavers to take the lead 46-43. Vernon Adams had other plans though, and led a magical drive to Oregon State's 2-yard line where he ran it in for the winning touchdown. The Beavers did try a 52-yard field goal for the win, but it was just right. After this loss, Oregon State turned it around and won 6 straight games. Then they turned that winning streak into a 5-game losing streak with close one-loss possessions. Ending with a record of 6-6, they still got into the Hawaii Bowl against Boise State, where Oregon State won 38-23. Eastern Washington won Week 2 against Western Oregon to make them 2-0, yet Weeks 3 and 4 the Eagles lost to FBS Toledo and then FCS Sam Houston State, leaving them at 2-2. What followed next was a 10-game winning streak that led them to the FCS playoff semifinal against Townsend, where the Eagles' season ended 35-31. Now this next upset is a great memory as a guy from North Dakota because it was when North Dakota State beat the then-ranked 13th Iowa in 2016. This was the year after NDSU star quarterback Carson Wentz got drafted to the NFL. The game was NDSU's 3rd game, and they won their first 2 games. It was as well Iowa's 3rd game, and they were also 2-0. Iowa had a 21-14 lead going into the 4th quarter, but that all changed when Chase Morlock caught a touchdown from Easton Stick. Yet, NDSU opted to go for the 2-point conversion that was unsuccessful, so Iowa was still up. The Bison then forced Iowa to punt with 2 minutes left, and Easton Stick led a drive to Iowa's 27-yard line with 5 seconds left. The field goal kick went up and snuck in for a Bison upset win, 23-21. A fun fact to add after this game, after beating Iowa, North Dakota State received 74 votes in the AP poll, barely missing out on the top 25 ranking. The Bisons ranked 27th that week, and 74 votes were the most ever earned by an FCS program in the AP poll. Iowa had an up-and-down season after that. The last 8 Big Ten games went 5-3. The Hawkeyes made the Outback Bowl against Florida, but were humiliated 30-3. North Dakota State, on the other hand, went their regular season going 10-1 with a loss to South Dakota State. In the FCS playoffs, they made it to the semifinals against James Madison, where their season ended 27-17. The final FCS upset against a ranked FBS opponent came in 2021, where the Montana Grizzlies upset the 20th ranked Washington Huskies. This game was a defensive battle to say the least, as at halftime, the game stood 7-3, with Washington having the lead. No action in the 3rd quarter, then Montana scored a touchdown in the 4th with 10 minutes left and converted a field goal with 3 minutes left to give the Grizz a 13-7 lead. Washington could not complete a pass on 4th down to keep their drive going, and Montana got the upset win. The Huskies went on to have a very insignificant season as they only won 4 games in 2021 against Arkansas State, California, Arizona, and Stanford, meaning they finished 4-8. Montana went their regular season 9-2 and made the FCS playoffs as a 6th seed. In the second round, they beat Eastern Washington 57-41, but the quarterfinals they lost out against 3-seed James Madison 6-28. What's kind of crazy about this whole list is I think you viewers know all about these upsets since there was really only one before our times of watching college football. No doubt there'll be more in the future, and I'm just hoping for not another long year gap between upsets like the years from Cincinnati to Appalachian State. And if you wouldn't mind hitting the like button, the subscribe button, and hitting the bell notification. Thank you.